Awesome, of course. No, my A1C was high, and I need to do something about it. I don't think I've actually been in one of these buildings. I've filled in for.
Well, it is.
I think I watched all of my. Yes, it's gonna be our very last day right here, actually.
So Dr. Counselor McGee is going to be,
Is what?
Yes, this is
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
one minute, 1 minute.
That's how we look. Okay. Okay.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the Albany City Council meeting on Wednesday, June 28th, 2023 at 6 p.m. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and would you please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Allison, do a roll call, please.
Counselor McGee.
Present.
Counselor Novak.
Here.
Counselor Newton.
Present.
Counselor Kopczynski.
Here.
Counselor Montague. Counselor Smith. Here. Mayor Johnson.
Here. Thank you very much for that. Counselor Montague is enjoying herself in Venice. I saw pictures, so I'm really excited for her. So thank you. Tonight we have two proclamations which we read, and I'll read both. can we fix the present? There we go. Thank you. Proclamation, Disability Pride Month, July 2023. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was passed by the United States Congress on July 26, 1990, to ensure the civil rights of citizens with disabilities, and whereas the ADA is recognized as one of the most important civil rights laws in history, and whereas the ADA prohibits discrimination based on disability, requiring employers to provide reasonable accommodations and ensuring that public accommodations meet the accessibility requirements, and whereas the City of Albany affirms the dignity of all individuals with disabilities, supports equity, and refuses to tolerate acts of discrimination and hatred, and whereas the people with disabilities continue to face discrimination for being who they are and continue to be targets of violence and harassment, yet continue to persist through the support and efforts of the disabled community, community agencies, businesses, and individual allies. And whereas Disability Pride empowers people with disabilities to reject negative perceptions, combat ableism, bias, and discrimination, and affirm their self-worth as individuals with value, talent, and significance. Now, therefore, I, Alexander D. Johnson II, Mayor of the City of Albany, do hereby proclaim July 2023 as Disability Pride Month in the City of Albany, Oregon. And I encourage all people in our community to join in celebrating diversity and promoting inclusion and equity. And I further encourage people to advocate for the removal of discriminatory policies and practices toward any group of people. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Albany to be affixed this 28th day of June, 2023. Alexander D. Johnson II, Mayor. Parks and Recreation Month. Usually the director reads this one. She's not here today? I'd love that. I like putting people on the spot, too.
Happy to read it.
There we go.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for this opportunity. All right. Whereas parks and recreation programs are integral parts of our communities throughout this country, including Albany, Oregon. And whereas parks and recreation programs promote time spent in nature, which improves mental health, increasing cognitive performance and well-being, and alleviating illnesses such as depression, attention deficit disorders, and Alzheimer's disease. And whereas parks and recreation facilities encourage physical activities by providing space for popular sports, hiking trails, swimming pools, and many other activities designed to promote active lifestyles. And whereas parks and recreation programming and education activities, such as out-of-school time programming, youth sports, and environmental education, are critical to childhood development. And whereas parks and recreation facilities increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of local tax base, increased tourism, attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors.
Now, therefore, I, Alexander D. Johnson II, Mayor of the City of Albany, do hereby proclaim July 2023 as Parks and Recreation Month and encourage all residents and visitors to use Albany's parks and recreation facilities to participate in parks and recreation programming. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Albany to be affixed this 28th day of June, 2023. Alexander D. Johnson II, Mayor. Messed my own name up. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
And I do have a comment about that. I met a gentleman at Margin Coffee on Santiam. He said that he comes from Salem to go to our parks because he feels safer in our parks. So thank you. Next on tonight's agenda is a special presentation by Zibly Fiber Optic, Zach Lindahl, a local partnership manager. Thank you. "15 minutes, please.
Can I get the share on Zoom so I can get the PowerPoint up if possible? That's something I can do? Perfect. Oh, there we go. There we go. Perfect. right. Good evening, Mayor Johnson and Albany City Council. My name is Zach Lindahl, and I am the local partnerships manager for Ziply Fiber. One of my main duties in this role is to work with local governments to help bring fiber optic capability to your residents. Back in 2020, Ziply Fiber purchased an existing copper network from a telecommunications company that provided both voice and broadband services to their subscribers. Upon purchasing the copper network, Ziply Fiber leadership team established the goal to overlay the network with fiber optic capability, bringing the best broadband internet on the market to those who are both unserved and underserved. So how have we done this? Ziply Fiber has invested more than $500 million across our 4-state territory of Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Montana, laying over 1,900 miles of fiber since 2020. Currently, 60% of our subscribers have access to our fiber optic network and have the ability to receive speeds at 10 gigabit per second download and upload speeds, which is the fastest speeds in the market. We take great pride in this, and we appreciate the hard work that our over 1,400 employees put in every day. So fiber is the premier broadband technology on the market today, and projects like the one here in Albany are a build once approach. This one-time investment is great because our technology is scalable, meaning we can continue to improve speeds, latency, and jitter without requiring additional construction. Once in place, operation of the network is minimal, as our network requires less maintenance and power to keep up and running, unlike our competitors in the cable broadband market. So on this slide here just shows how much fiber we've put in place, the 1,900 miles that I referenced a few minutes ago across our 4-state territory, spanning over Washington, Oregon, Montana, and Idaho. So unlike some of the other providers, including cable, we operate the network both as a retail and wholesale network. We have more than 130 carriers in Oregon who are interconnected to our network. In addition, another 20 internet service providers are leveraging our state-of-the-art network to serve customers, maximizing Ziply Fiber's investment and creating market competition. So the question is, why fiber and why now? As I stated earlier, fiber is the premier technology in the broadband industry, and Ziply Fiber offers the fastest speeds available at 10 gigabits per second download and 10 gigabits per second upload. We do this with no data caps or contracts. Also, it has been proven that having quality broadband at a location can increase property values by as much as 3%. So why not get the best? Ziply Fiber is rapidly expanding our network, as we just extended fiber optic capability to our 100th market by extending into Yakima, Washington. The vast majority of our projects have one thing in common, and that is a digital divide. We prioritize markets that have no other fiber in place, meaning residents and businesses lack the type of internet required to meet today's usage needs. Also, we take great pride in our excellent customer service. When acquiring our network in 2020, our Net Promoter Score was at -20, which monitors customer satisfaction. And we just got word the other day our rating is now at 69. This is one of the best, if not the best, NPS score on the telecommunications market today. During the process of expanding into Albany, we want to work closely with our city and community partners. Before we submit permits, we want to make sure everyone is aware of the build plan, timing, and benefits that will be gained from this investment. We also want to be transparent and address any unknowns prior to embarking on the construction process. But construction is hard regardless of what is being built. And we have found through clear communication, working with our public partners to ensure city resources are used efficiently, and wrapping up construction quickly minimizes the pain points that come from construction. Inevitably, something will go wrong, and despite our careful planning, when it does, we work hard to ensure that we are accessible and responsive. We ask the residents to reach out to us rather than the city if there's any issues during the construction process. One way to do so is to provide feedback through our online portal at ziplyfiber.com/construction-feedback. Also, we have a strong local presence that would be happy to meet with any residents in person or council mayor. So here's just some examples of how we keep the residents of Albany up to date with what's going on here. You'll see flyers and signs that dictate where construction's taking place and kind of what's going on. One other way we help spread the message is by creating pre-packaged social media content and other content through different modes of communications that you might have. On the screen, you can see an example of a Facebook post we had for the city of Walla Walla. You can see the interaction with some of the residents there and just keeping people up to date on what's going on, so we can help with that as well. Another thing that is really great about Ziply Fiber is we actually participate in the Affordable Connectivity Program. The ACP is an FCC benefit that helps ensure that households can afford broadband they need. Qualified households can receive $30 off their monthly broadband, and those on tribal lands can receive $75 off. A household is eligible for the ACP if household income is at or below the 200% federal poverty guideline, or if they're a part of free and reduced lunch program, SSI, SNAP, Medicaid, and some other programs that exist. As an ACP provider, we actually go above and beyond by offering 200 megabits per second upload and download and upload speeds, a free internet, a free router rental, and free installation as well. We also participate in several other We also participate in several other programs that provide discounts on broadband. You can see them here up on the screen as well. So Ziply Fiber truly is a community partner as we actively participate and work with local nonprofits, sponsor events, concerts, and sports teams, and we participate in charitable donations. Most recently, we raised $10,000 in toys for Toys for Tots campaign. Also, we have community engagement coordinators across our 4-state territory, and they help us maintain a strong community presence where we operate. And we look forward to supporting Albany community here in the near future. So where are we right now with the city? Currently, we are finishing up the last of our pre-construction tasks, and we expect to start construction on our fiber optic network here in Albany in the next 30 days. So now up on the screen, this is the project that will be taking place in 2 separate phases here in Albany. We'll be providing multi-gigabit tier capability to over 5,000 locations in phase 1, which are highlighted in the blue and green blocks that you see up on your screen. We're planning on doing phase 2 of this project in 2024, which are designated by the orange and purple blocks. These areas may require residential plow and micro trenching to be completed. Lastly, we'll continue to evaluate the areas of Albany we have not committed to building yet, and we will assess at a later time. You can see those on the north side of the map here. And with that, I'd like to thank you, Mayor Johnson, and the City Council for your time, and here to answer questions.
Before we start, Albany.
Yeah, not Albany, thanks.
It's funny is I had somebody give me a tip before I got up here, and I did it the other way around.
I was referencing a football game, and I said penalty on West Albany, and I got corrected by a lot of fans. So trust me. So thank you, Council. Do we have any questions for the gentleman?
Yes.
Councilor Novak said yes first.
So
Councilor
yes, you had your
Kopczynski.
hand up. I yield to the raised hand.
Okay.
Okay, just wondering, can you email us or get us a copy of that map that you just, so a larger version of it so we can see it?
Absolutely, yeah. I can email the PowerPoint out to Allison.
Yes.
Perfect. I'll email the PowerPoint to Allison to be shared. So
And she gets it to us.
perfect.
Thank you.
So go ahead, Councilor Newton. You had something? Councilor Novak?
I
you were-
do,
yeah, you
yes.
do.
Forgive me if I missed something super important, but I have wondered, I've seen the name Ziply, and I think we just had fiber optics installed in like North Albany where you're not touching stuff by Comcast or something recently in the last few years. Ziply, is this purely for low income? And because you spoke to that for some time, no?
No, so
Okay.
sorry to clarify, we purchased an existing copper network from a other telecommunications
Okay.
provider 3 years ago, and we made it a goal to overlay that with fiber optic capability. We're actually extending in to the city now. We have not previously been here, so
Okay, I guess part of my question was, Forgive me, we need you because?
Because
Is it
we
just
offer,
in the name of competition or?
so we offer the best broadband internet on the market, and it's important, obviously, to have the best broadband in order to continue education, for telehealth, for work. I mean, it has become a necessity in today, and so yeah, we'll bring additional competition, another choice for consumers here in the city.
Thank you for clarifying for me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor McGee, do you have anything? Counselor McGee? Counselor Newton?
I just wanted to state that I'm thrilled to have, I'm a huge advocate of the free market and healthy competition. So fantastic. I don't think Comcast should have the cornerstone on all the market.
Appreciate it.
Counselor Smith?
Does any other company offer fiber or broadband for free for low-income customers?
I'd have to get back to you on that one, specifically here in Albany.
Albany.
Albany is,
You're stuck now, you know that, right?
I'm gonna get booted out of here soon. Not that I'm aware of, no. I believe that there's no other fiber providers in the city.
Thank you.
So I'm pretty excited about this. I know that I'm going to introduce Jessica to some local developers. I'm going to have coffee or something, probably next month. But I think it's important that there is competition. I like the fact that Discount Tire moved right across the street from Les Schwab. I like the fact that McDonald's is right down the street from another fast food joint. It breeds competition and also creates opportunities for people to make a choice, and I think that's great. So I'm excited to have you here. Any other councilors? I think the gentleman, I'm good. Thank you so much. And I would like your business card, please. That's possible.
Yeah, I actually
you
don't
very
have a business card, but I'll leave my information behind.
Thank you.
So really appreciate your time. Thank you all.
All right, appreciate it. Next on tonight's agenda is the public hearing revising Parks and Recreation System Development Charges. Director Ladane will be speaking to us. Direction on how to testify and submit written materials were published in the council agenda. I declare the public hearing open at 6:18 p.m. Thank you. So we have no one that signed up to talk on the agenda. Is there going to be a staff report?
Yes.
Thank you. Director?
Thank you for your patience. You can do it. All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come back and talk about SDC rates with you. So I was just here back at the end of May, so I want to spare you all the full presentation, but I figure it never hurts to have a reminder. So once again, how we got here, we passed our master plan back in 2001. In May 2022, we passed an updated methodology, but rates did not go through at that time, as council wanted to make sure that there were there were concerns about housing affordability and the non-residential rates. So removing non-residential from the methodology, it passed. We brought our updated rates back to you all on the 24th of May, and then posted and notified of tonight's public hearing. Once again, you all know this, growth is happening, most specifically in the eastern and southern part of our community. In the next 10 years, we're looking to add over 10,000 residents, over 4,000 employees. And as you can see below, we have quite a bit of natural space that we need to provide in order to, what we talked about earlier with Parks and Recreation Month, provide green space, opportunities for people to get out and just enjoy themselves. So projects that were mentioned in the 2021 master plan, which helped to go in towards developing the methodology. Our community, yes, it was aspirational, but almost $50 million worth of improvements were identified. Some of these, as I mentioned, were larger items, but other ones were, just putting in a neighborhood park, a 3-acre neighborhood park in South Albany. And then going through and bringing some of our current parks up to meet the needs that are there with the increased community members that have moved in since it was created. So with almost $50 million worth of infill worth of projects, I'm providing a reminder that our Parks SDC balance, once we get done with Meadow Ridge Park, which you'll hear me talk about a little bit later on this evening, will be $1.2 million. And that is not even enough to put together a 1.8 acre park in 2023 dollars. So as a reminder, our SDC rates have not been updated in 22 years. Since 1993, they have only been updated 5 times. It's come up quite a few times, but it has never made it through. And as a result, we are well below what our comparable communities are. As you can see, it ranges anywhere from $3,500 up to almost $8,000. And these are numbers that I was able to pull, and some of them have been indexed since then. So we are still sitting very much at the bottom. So with all of this in mind, as I mentioned before, this approach that I am asking you all to consider and hopefully approve is for us to match our average house size to the average SDC rate as it would be for comparable communities. I did not pull data from Portland area, as we know that is a different economy up there and a different, it's a different situation. And so we picked, Corvallis, Eugene, Lebanon, Springfield, and Salem. And if we were to do that, we would essentially, and using the scaled rate that would make Parks and Recreation SDCs lower for smaller square footage homes and higher up to 3,000 square feet, that would put a 22.5 square foot home at $5,110. So in front of you this evening is a resolution for moving forward with this fee setting. If it is approved tonight, then I'll be able to work with the folks upstairs, and it'll start to be implemented on July 1st. Any questions?
Well, we'll have to go to the rest of this stuff. And any questions for her now? Okay, so we're going to do, no one signed up to speak on the list. And then no one registered virtually. Does anyone in the audience like to speak or address this topic? No one's speaking up in the audience. I declare this public hearing closed at 6:23 p.m. 18:23. Now, council discussion. Do we have council discussion on this topic? Councilor McGee, do you have discussion? Thank you for your presentation.
No problem.
Council, there's a resolution on page 7 of your agenda packet. Would the council like to make a motion?
I would make a motion to, what are we doing here? To adopt the revised schedule for Parks and Recreation system development charges with the comment that it's time.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
Have a good evening, Director.
Oh, you'll see me again.
The next on the council agenda is business from the public. There's only one. Okay, Rich Kellum. Okay. So I'll go with Mr. Stanley first. Are you online?
Yes.
Mr. Stanley, you have 3 minutes. We have a clock, please. Thank you.
This is regard the SDC and connection charge financing. And the city, for some reason, is not including the connection fees, in which are required by state statute to be subject to the Bancrofting Act. And it clearly states in the statute. And the city's attorney, Mr. Kidd, has even agreed with that assessment. And we've been waiting 3 months for the simple form so we can start our projects. We can't start our projects until the system development financing is signed, the application is signed, but the city, for some reason, is saying it doesn't have to or doesn't want to finance the connection charge. And it's not a question of whether the city wants to or not. The city has to. It's written in the statute. And our attorney, Mr. Cook and Mr. Kidd, have had several conversations, and even Mr. Kidd doesn't understand why the city council has drug its feet on this. And so now the projects are just sitting because we didn't budget in for this. We do this all the time with other cities and municipalities, and they're all on board with the same statute. The statute was written just for this.
Mr.
I would
Kidd,
like to know why the council is holding this process up.
so this is the first time I believe this council's heard of this.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor. And what the speaker is referring to is items 7D and 7E on your agenda, which are financing of systems development charges for two properties that Mr. Pichet is proposing to develop. However, we are, contrary to what he says, we are not allowed, the council is not allowed to finance connection charges. And the Albany Municipal Code expressly states that. So you see items 7D and 7E there. Those SDCs are put forth in front of the council for financing this evening. But I'll have to let the city attorney address the connection charges issue.
I'm sorry, I can't see your name, so please, I'm not trying to be disrespectful for the names. But
That's all right, sir. This is Peter Trotzen, city manager.
okay, thank you, Peter. The state law, in fact, is very explicit. ORS 23207.
Sir, this is not the time for discussion on this topic. We're going to have time later in the agenda. So we brought your point, and we're going to bring it up later in the agenda. So
Mr. Mayor, this is a little bit unusual. What's later in the agenda is the financing of SDCs.
Okay.
What Mr. Pichet wants to finance is also connection charges. So this probably is the time that the council should hear from the city attorney as to why financing connection charges is not possible, or at the best, it's kind of a gray area. But the code, specifically our code, says we will not do it.
Okay, so city attorney?
Okay, so as Peter said, we're going to have a couple of resolutions come up in a few minutes where Mr. Stanley's properties, he's requesting that his system development charges or STC fees are going to be financed. And the statute allows for that under ORS 223, as well as our code. Our development code allows for it as well, our municipal code. What it doesn't allow for in our code is the financing of connection charges. Now, the statute in question here is ORS 223, and Mr. Stanley's attorney takes the position that it allows for the financing of connection charges as well. And in some cases, that is true. What Peter is saying is in this case, it's a gray area, and it is. It's a gray area whether they apply to a city of our size, and if so, how much of those connection charges are able to be financed, because it's not just the whole amount. I thought Mr. Stanley's a lawyer might be here tonight to make an argument for allowing for those connection charges to be financed, but we have not done it in the city before, and our code doesn't allow for it, so it would be an exception to our code. Now, Mr. Stanley's avenue, would be to challenge the code and say that they are allowed pursuant to the state statute. And I can get into detail a little bit about it. His property is, I don't want to say it's unique, but it's somewhat different than others where his connection charges are a lot more expensive than the average building lot because it's a corner lot. It has about almost 200 feet, linear feet, and that's how the connection charge is based, off of linear feet. I think Matthew Rutgers could tell you the exact number or close to it, but we're talking somewhere close to $80,000 in connection charges. But at this point, our staff has is not comfortable with financing the connection charges. And at this point, like again, the state law is kind of a gray on whether or not we would be required to finance any of those connection charges. I had a talk with Mr. Cook last week, late in the week, and he was going to look into it some more and get back to us. I thought he might be here tonight. Again, he's not. But tonight, that's not going to be on your agenda. It's just the system development charges that are being requested to be financed. And per our code, we do allow for that.
So we will have to, if I would recommend that the council, we find out a little bit more, because there are other factors that impact this. And you would need to hear from Director Bailey about any potential impacts that changing the municipal code to allow for financing of connection charges would have. But right now, if you want to boil it down, our municipal code does not allow us to finance connection charges.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for presenting today. So apparently it will be coming back to us in a matter of, what, a month or so?
Well, if that's something that, the only person that has asked to finance connection charges is Mr. Pache, the Pache Group. So if they want to do that, what I would recommend is that we get on the agenda in a meeting soon, a briefing from our Public Works Director and Community Development to talk about the ramifications of changing our municipal code to allow that. I don't think, just from what I know and from what I've heard, that it is a good idea. And then, of course, there's the additional factor as to whether or not the state law overrides it. But you've heard from Mr. Kidd here, and I don't think that that's the case.
Okay, thank you very much. Next on tonight's business from the public is Rich Kellum, matter of homelessness. Three minutes, please.
Good evening. Most of you would recognize that the homeless is not one group of people. It's like 7 or 8 or 9, depending on how you.
Please speak closer to the mic.
Someone said, Rich, be louder. That doesn't happen a lot. I mean, actually, that's, I think, the 21st time in my life. Most of you would recognize that the homeless are a group of groups. We have trouble with 2 or 3 out of the 8 or 9 groups that they comprise. I would recommend that you come up with a different way of naming them. For example, whether you call them homeless or street people or something, because what happens is some bad guy does something bad, and it's the damn homeless that did it.
Oh, I see.
Well, the 5 groups of people that had nothing to do with it also get blamed there. So I would say, call it the mentally ill homeless, or come up with a modifier.
Right.
So you're not trashing the other people that are maybe just had a hard time. Second item I have is you folks just went through and made 2 places for the homeless to be. I would urge you to make a third. And the third would be in the periphery of the city. And it would be for no other reason than a place to put those folks. No improvements, out of the way, a place where they're not going to like it. So that if you make that third group, that third place, you then can put restrictions on the 2 you've got. You can say, there are standards we're going to have. I mean, those 3 groups as a group are some of the, least responsible people on the face of the earth. And there are the others that, they're in their car. They're trying to get along. But if you could have a rule that says you can't scream and yell at 3 o'clock in the morning, or you can't openly use drugs, or you can't walk around drunk and fall down and, whatever it is. And that's up for you to come up with those restrictions. But having a third place, and understand, I'm not talking about go spend a bunch of money. There's a field and you mow it and you put 4 stakes in it, and inside you can be there.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you. Thank you. I think council will be talking about this. Thank you.
Okay.
Next on tonight's agenda is Mr. John Pish. Am I saying that properly?
Pitch.
Pitch. Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about some problems we have out in North Albany on Squire Street.
Squire Street, okay.
Yes. We have no police protection out there. I haven't seen but one police car now in the last 5 years, and that was just recently here. The people go up and down that street at supersonic speeds. The buses and trucks are the same thing. I was out in the culvert the other day pulling weeds, and there was 2 of them passing each other. It was doggone scary out there. I was lucky I wasn't on the bike path where people are with their kids and dogs, because the city allowed D.R. Horton to put in 280 houses at the end of my street, and now they use my street to get out to the main street to get to town. So it's creating quite a problem out there. All the neighbors feel the same way, but I've talked to the city here about speed bumps, and they said that I had to get a petition from every neighbor signing it and paying for part of this operation. I mean, we pay for police protection. All I'd like to have is one officer out there 1 hour a week for 4 weeks and get those people in line with knowing that there's somebody going to give them a ticket if they're speeding. It's a pretty simple thing, maybe it's not for some people, I don't understand, but like I say, I haven't seen it. And I've got the police putting speed signs out there, but the people look at that and say, yeah, I'm speeding. And they go right through it now. They've seen them so many times. I've been requesting it for years. And Darla works for the police department, lives across the street, and she puts it on her side of the street too for the other neighbors and stuff. So I don't understand why we can't get something done. It's downright dangerous. The lines on the street aren't painted, they haven't been painted last year, and they had not painted this year yet either. So they're pretty hard to see in some places, gone to be exact.
I imagine in the darkness.
And then there's fir trees down on a few of the properties that are right next to the culvert, so that's probably city property, my guess. Because my wife's roses are all in the city property. So
did you just tell on yourself? So Councilor Newton she said you guys had spoke on the phone.
Pardon?
Councilor Newton said you guys spoke. Councilor Newton.
We spoke on the phone, I believe last week. We spoke on the phone last week about this issue.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we did.
Yes.
So we're looking, so I know you offered up, since you have an extra wide lot, having, an opportunity to get a police officer out there.
Yes.
We're working on it right now.
Oh, are you?
Yes, I've already been in touch with Albany Police to, street safety is really important. Want to make sure everyone feels safe and comfortable in their community. And I don't want anyone to get hurt by vehicles because, we're soft and squishy. Vehicles are not.
It's quite dangerous there on the street.
Yeah, and
like I say, a lot of women and children and people walking dogs all the time down that street.
Yeah, and so I've been in touch with Albany Police, and we're working on a solution. You're on my to-call list.
Okay,
So-
you might get along with the street department too and see who owns the end of that street, because I think there's a private fence with ivy on it that you can't see around the corner. You stop at the stop sign, you have to bring your whole hood in front of your car out in the street before you can see to make your turn.
So I'm happy that you took the lead on this. So thank you. So Mr. Pitch, she will be in contact, or Councilor Novak, because both of your councils are on Ward 1.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Can I just correct something here? In the council manager form of government, let me talk to you about how we address this, because there's a lot more that goes into it than just determining whether we can send a police officer up there. But I'll give you a card. Well, there'll probably also be a question of measuring speed there and seeing how much exactly it's a problem.
We've done that about 100 times now.
Well, then it probably tells me that the problem isn't as great as it might be in some other parts of the city. But if I can give you a card, and we can certainly have you come and speak with ourselves, with the traffic engineer and the police chief.
Even the school buses go down that street at supersonic. The small one, the big one goes about regular speed, but the other one goes really fast down the street.
Well, we'll
Yeah,
we'll
that's
work.
not so good with the school bus. I called the police before, but they did nothing about it.
Sir, could you please
Time out.
exchange information with him? And so the city manager will make sure you
Okay.
have the contact.
All right.
Thank you. Next on tonight's agenda is adoption of resolutions. There was a supplemental. Let me go find that one. It's been incorporated? Okay. Approve the sole source procurement of water meter with Scott LaRock. Hello, Scott.
Evening, council. What you have in front of you is a resolution for sole source procurement of census water meters for our water distribution system. Give you a brief history lesson. When the city purchased the water system from PP&L back in 1985, we basically got a system that had a bunch of different types and brands of water meters throughout the system. And the staff back then identified it would be, very advantageous to standardize and go to a common water metering brand and to start using them and installing them going forward. And that's what they did. And we've been installing census water meters and using them throughout our system since the late 80s. We have over 20,000 of these water meters in our system now. They range in size from 3/4 inch to 8-inch size, just depending on the service. And we have to go through and replace a portion of them every year because they last about 20 years. So between that and new installations for just for development, we spend about $200,000 a year on water meters. The Census brand is still very common, very reliable. It's used nationwide. Ferguson is our distributor. They've been extremely easy to work with over the years, and we'd like to continue that relationship. So the sole source is for a term of 5 years for $1 million, or not to exceed $1 million. The money is budgeted annually out of the distribution budget. I'm open to any questions.
Council, any questions? Councilor McGee, you online? She just dropped? Okay. Any council? She's no longer, okay. Okay. Any council, any questions? Do we have a motion?
I move we adopt a resolution acting as the local contract review board, waiving competitive bidding and awarding a sole source contract to Ferguson Enterprises LLC, Ferguson, and authorizing the Public Works Director to execute a contract with Ferguson to procure census water meters for the drinking water distribution system.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Councilor Novak?
I said aye.
Oh, you did? Okay. I didn't see you. Thank you. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda item is request for finance system development charges, 1804 17th Avenue Southwest. Director Yeager will be speaking to us this evening.
Good evening. As mentioned earlier, the Pache Group is asking for SDC financing on 2 different properties. This is something that we do allow for in our code, and we have several of these that we have been financing. We do this for a 10-year period, 6.55% interest, and no penalty for early payoff. We just need council to approve these.
So are we doing both of these at the same time?
They're on two separate resolutions, but you can approve them at the same time if you wish.
Council, any discussion for Director Yeager? Counselor Smith?
I was going to move the adoption of the resolutions on 27 and 31.
I have a motion and I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, Director. It's nice weather outside. Award of the contract, number 8, item 8, award of contract for Meadow Ridge Park improvements by Director Ladane.
Hello again.
So soon.
So soon. So I am back this evening. You've heard me talk quite a bit about Meadow Ridge Park, the new 1.8 acre playground and green space that's going to go in between Timber Ridge Middle and Meadow Ridge Elementary out on the east side of town. We have come to you before to get approval to purchase the playground equipment in advance because it takes a while for things to get here. We've gone through a competitive bid process, and we are asking you all tonight to allow us to enter into a contract with K&E Excavating out of Salem for $922,277 in order for us to move forward with construction this later part of the summer. Are there any questions?
Council, questions for Director Ladane?
Yes, did we have more than one bid? Usually we see bids in a,
Yes, there were, and a bid sheet. It should be, it's on the back, it's on page 33. We only had 2 groups that bid.
33? I remember
Yes.
seeing that earlier, but
Yeah.
let me double check what I.
They're both pretty close to one another, but we were very happy with
Oh, there they are. Okay.
the bid.
oh, I see, there's all the individual line items. on
Right.
it. Okay.
Sorry.
Gotcha,
We usually
gotcha.
just get a box with the number in
Yeah,
it.
the bottom, yeah,
Yeah.
got it.
We don't want to get into the weeds.
I was going to say, in case you're curious how much chain link fencing costs.
All good.
So, Council, go ahead, question?
I was just
Director?
curious about timeline.
Sure. So if we're able to execute the contract tonight, then hopefully we'll start to mobilize in the next 3 weeks. And the hope would be that by the end of October, we would have a playground installed and it all taken care of and a ribbon cutting ceremony out there.
That is awesome.
That's fantastic.
I'm not sure if the playground is already planned. I'm sure it already is. I just want to throw in there, it'd be great to have a covered playground because it rains and I can't have the only children that still love to play outside even though it's raining.
It's not in the books for this one, but in a future one, we can look at options.
Thank you. Council, we have a do we have a motion?
On behalf of my constituents in Ward 3, I would move to award the contract as presented.
Oh, second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Thank you, Director, and I guess you're going to stick with us a little bit longer.
Yep. You've seen me
Motion
again.
passes. So next is approval and agreement, approve IGA agreement with Greater Albany Public Schools for the construction of a therapeutic spa. Director Ladane speaking with us about that topic.
So yes, thank you. As you all know, we've had a grassroots group that has been working hard for the last few years as our, the former one we can call a hot tub was about 40 years old at Albany Community Pool and in need of repair for a long time. It had catastrophic failure earlier this year and has been removed. This group has been fundraising for many years and has raised over $20,000 individual as a grassroots group through the Parks and Recreation Foundation, through pop cans and all sorts of pop can collections and craft sales. We were also very fortunate to receive a $180,000 donation from the Doris and Bill Scharf Foundation, which we are so incredibly thankful for. And so with the $200,000, we feel like we are in a position where we are actually able to start talking about construction. Our Albany Community Pool is actually owned by GAPS, and so we manage it on their behalf. And so as a result, we are not able to do the procurement processing and enter into the contract to actually construct it. It's not our building. And so the IGA in front of you this evening is so that we can work with GAPS and we can move through their procurement process, work collaboratively together, and hope to move towards being able to put this out for bid and hopefully get it installed at some point.
Thank you, Director. Any questions from Council? Council Newton?
No questions, but I'm thrilled. I've had constituents reach out to me about this, and I think it's very appropriate that we're that this has come before us during Disability Pride Month. I do know that several members that have reached out to me from our community have said that they have utilized in the past the therapeutic spa for muscular dystrophy or other issues that, having access to this kind of resource, helps them live a better life. So thank you.
Counselor Smith?
This sounds like $180,000 worth of pennies from heaven. So another thing to add to the Scharf legacy in Albany. I'm really pleased to see that. I never thought this would get off the ground. So I'll make the motion to go for it.
Okay, Counselor has something first. Counselor Novak?
Thank you. Yeah, before you do, I just wanted to say that I likewise remember when we had a room full of older folks and they showed their slides and they talked about how helpful this was to them. I mean, I know we have various degrees of disability and in no way discounting that, but I just want to say I remember that previous engagement we had, and I want to say that I'm thrilled on behalf of everyone who will be using that spa.
Counselor Kopsinski?
Yes, just want to clarify, the IGA isn't specifying how much it may end up costing. We're just entering into an agreement to start exploring all those ramifications.
Correct.
Thank you.
I need one more statement. So you know I work with seniors, right?
I do.
They've been banging on my door since I got elected mayor about this spa. So this is a great news for me. And I'm hoping to have text messages after this meeting that we're finally going to get done. So thank you very much. Now, Counselor Smith.
My other comment, Ray opened the door there. I wanted to make a comment about how this is a good example of ongoing cooperation with other governmental agencies, working well with the school district on property that is sort of, it's like a blended family. And that's the child that needs special care. So I'm going to, one more time, since it's official, I will make my motion to go forth.
Adopt the resolution?
Yes, adopt the resolution. Thank you.
I'll second that. Go forth.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it's unanimous, so motion passes. Thank you very much. And they'll stop harassing me now. So thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been a great night for Parks and Recreation. I appreciate all your support.
Thank you, Director. Next is adoption of the consent calendar. Does any counselor wish to remove an item or for discussion, or is there a motion to adopt the consent calendar as presented?
Standoff. Move to adopt the consent calendar as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Thank you very much. Next is a staff report. Request for license to occupy right-of-way Northwest Dover Lane. Dr. Director Bailey. Director, how you doing?
Good, thank you. Okay. There's a memo in your packet that describes this item on page 61. So I'm not going to go over that in detail, but I'll just try to provide a little bit of additional information. So staff is recommending that you do not award this license to occupy public right-of-way, and there are a few reasons for that. The first is that public right-of-way exists for the use of the public by definition. Secondly, the council recently as last year, directed staff not to issue a license to occupy public right-of-way under very similar circumstances, which were a neighbor-to-neighbor dispute along Vine Street, where one of the neighbors requested permission to build a fence and a gate to gate off right-of-way, and the council not only directed us not to allow that gate to be built, but to clear out all of the Vine Street right-of-way, which has been a significant effort over the last year. So providing conflicting direction in similar circumstances is always a big challenge for staff because it creates confusion among the staff that have to deal with these types of requests and is likely to generate the Vine Street folks coming back and asking you for the exact same thing that the council has already declined. Next, the next reason is that although this right-of-way is not improved as a drivable road, There is use of the right-of-way as evidenced by a footpath that's worn between the unimproved section of Dover Road near Crocker Lane and where the barricade is near Grandview. So there is some pedestrian use of this right-of-way, probably from people who are trying to get onto Gibson Hill Road and don't want to walk along Crocker where there's not a sidewalk, but there are sidewalks through the Grandview neighborhood, which has improved urban standard streets. Finally, just generally speaking, closing public right-of-way is not really the solution when there are neighborhood disputes. And I'm very sympathetic that these things happen. There are some, I would like to suggest, actually as Peter's suggestion, that there are some mediation services and other things that could be taken advantage of to try to resolve this neighbor-to-neighbor dispute that we can help put these folks in contact with that would provide a better solution than gating off the public right-of-way. The other thing that I'll offer is that we've discussed in Public Works, if the license to occupy is not issued and the gate is taken down, we can provide rock that clearly identifies the public right-of-way portion of the unimproved right-of-way in Dover, which will at least provide some definition as to where the public can and cannot walk, as that does seem to be part of the issue. The other thing that the council could do is to direct staff to include the improvement of this right-of-way in our capital improvement program. In the memo, it discusses the conditions under which a right-of-way like this would be improved to a city street. Oftentimes what happens is a large parcel, such as the one that's on the south side of this unimproved section, will come in and be platted to be subdivided into smaller residential parcels, which will probably happen for some time. At that time, that development will be required to improve that right-of-way to the city standard. The other thing that can happen, and that often does happen, is pressure from improvements on the west side of all of that building that has happened, both to the immediate west and to the northwest, will create pressure to provide another connecting street out to Crocker and to Gibson Hill. Where staff is a little bit surprised that we haven't received more complaints about the traffic that is now funneling south through the Grandview neighborhood to get to Gibson Hill. That traffic has picked up, and we had kind of expected to hear complaints from that neighborhood of the number of trips coming through there. And that sort of issue also tends to drive city-funded improvements. So we could improve this portion of Dover from the barricade to Crocker and get it at least paved and usable for vehicle traffic. It's not in our current plan of capital projects. We have, as you know, very limited street funding. But if it is a priority for the council and for the community, then we can add it to our capital program and figure out when in the next few years we could get that road improved, which would probably happen before the large parcel that remains to the south comes in to be subdivided.
Is that
So-
254 you're talking about?
2544.
Yeah, 2544, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, so those are some options for council. These types of situations are always difficult, and we want to try to help the community members get some resolution. But it's our opinion that blocking off public right-of-way is probably not the correct way to do that. And hopefully we can find, a solution that resolves it without creating this barrier. With that, I'm happy to take any questions. I'm not sure if either of the parties are here tonight, but we invited them to come if they wanted to speak.
Council, any questions for the director? Councilor Newton?
So, okay. The person that put up the fence, the gate, I apologize, let me know that they were not able to attend. I had spoken to the person who had put up the gate.
Mr. Berg?
Yes, the neighbor across the street from them, and then the neighbor that they've had a complaint with at length several times. I've also walked the unimproved area that is a public right-of-way. I agree, public land is public land. You should not, hinder access to that. So a few things that I have questions about. And I was just wearing Birkenstocks, as I usually do when I was walking, that section of Dover Lane through to the next area. And it wasn't ideal. I'm worried about someone with maybe some mobility issues falling and getting hurt. I'm happy to hear that you would probably be able to, within our budget, improve the public access. Because right now, it was actually kind of grown over since spring and summer is here. So I'm worried about public safety in regards to going through that public right of way, where there eventually will be a sidewalk, right? And then, as you mentioned, that Dover is currently it's a rocked dead end, and there isn't much room for a turnaround. For if people were to drive down, if a vehicle were to drive down and turn around, even I tried like parking on the shoulder, and it kind of slopes down on the shoulders, and it's not an improved road at all. So those are my concerns. Like either we need to improve access for vehicles to be able to have ability to turn around easily without those major slopes. But also, twofold, we should prioritize if we were to keep this open, make sure we have a set plan in place for public access improvements, because as it is right now, I really don't think it's safe for people with maybe to get through. And one other thing, and then I was also wondering if there was like a middle ground, like until we have public improvements, or if we have put up some signage that this is unimproved, proceed at your own risk. I'm not sure if we're legally allowed to do that. I'm sure Mr. Kidd can elaborate. And then, or if the road isn't improved, if there is a way for pedestrians to still get through to proceed to the right of way. Like if there's, you've seen those gates that have like, because in your letter, it mentions how it's tripped by a vehicle, but if there's also an adjoining fence for pedestrians, people to access freely, and limit vehicles going down and really having a difficult time to circle around on that dead end, that gravel dead end, that might be a middle ground until things are improved, the road and or the, but so.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts on that. Number one, if it is important to the council to create a safe access through there, then probably the best bet would be for us to add it to our capital improvement program and just start working on the design. And there's a little bit of additional right-of-way we would need to acquire at the west end there. It's sort of next down. And so we can do that. That would be the best solution, although it will take some time. The other thing I would suggest, I'm pretty sure there's already signage in there that says no outlet or that sort of sign. We can make sure that exists. And if necessary, we can install a type of road barricade like we have at the other end, where it clearly is blocking the drivability. The problem is Mr. Berg and his neighbors still need to get to their driveway. So it would have to be much further west so that they can still get in. But we can install some additional signage and a barricade if that the council would like that.
Could I clarify?
Go ahead.
I meant the like signage for the public right of way, like where it's unimproved, really like kind of grassy, rocky tree area,
right?
To say that it's unimproved and proceed like no motor vehicles walking, proceed at your own risk.
We would probably just barricade it off.
Oh, okay.
And do some no outlet signs closer to Crocker, so try to keep people from going down there that don't need to. But we'll definitely we can look into that because even if we do plan to improve the road, it will take some time, a matter of years.
Councilor Kopczynski.
Yes, I guess the question is, looking at the map that you have there, that neck down, as you called it, does the easement for the roadway that we currently have, does it have allow for a full width normal road, or is there going to have to
No.
be some property acquisition?
No, at the western end where the yellow line on the map is the right-of-way that has been dedicated. And so at the western end, we would need to acquire some more on the south side to get the full width that
I'm
we
in
need.
favor of getting it onto the CIP at this point. Yeah.
Okay.
So Councilor Novak has something as well.
Yes. In speaking about this, and I did accompany Councilor Newton out there to some of those homes on an earlier visit, and she had actually mentioned maybe mediation between the warring factions, for lack of a better term. My question is that something the city can actually do on behalf of these individuals? Who pays for mediation? I'd
Oh,
love
sure.
to see them work it out, especially if we're
Well,
going to deny.
You're going to enjoy this. So I didn't even realize this. Peter suggested it, so he gets all the credit. But right across the street is neighbor to neighbor mediation, which is uses trained volunteers, mediators, and it's for these types of issues. It's free. They actually also do court ordered mediation and things. But anyway, I talked with the gentleman today, and he said this is exactly the kind of thing that they do. And so we can suggest that they do that if they continue to have concerns.
Well, I surely
Isn't
hope
that
they
great?
do, and it helps. Yeah, that is wonderful.
amazing.
I've never
I
heard
know.
of such a thing.
I've
That's
already, just to
fabulous.
close loops, I also recommended that already to both parties.
Great.
Oh, great.
So I have never heard, I've been here 29 years, I've never heard of that.
I know.
I'm
right?
right next door to it, and I didn't ever, you know.
It's
So
amazing how many services are in the community.
So it'd be great for them to come and do a presentation, a special presentation.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else knows that they exist other than people in this room or views
Who
them.
didn't know it until, yeah.
So thank you very much, Director. So do we need to take any action here other than direction? Mediation?
Well, it would be good to get direction on the license to occupy, the request for the license to occupy. They did email a specific request to staff, and so just so we can get back to them and.
So council, we have a motion?
For temporary occupation,
Temporary or?
it was temporary, right? For,
Well, his request was for temporary, and I believe until the street was constructed. And our recommendation is not to do that, just for the various reasons.
I will make a motion to deny the request for a license to occupy and add to that a recommendation that we add improvements to this road to the CIP.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 You know, I'm not sure how I feel. I want them to get mediation, but I feel kind of bad telling this gentleman, sorry, you can't have your gate, you can't have your little, even temporarily. I don't know how I feel about that, quite honestly.
We've told others no.
I know, that set that precedent, but I still don't know how good I feel about that. I don't know why we can't just leave it as it is. As far as putting something in the CIP, forgive me, but our roads are just a wreck. Couldn't we use that money? I would rather see more money, finances, anything extra go to improving our streets than improving this one thing where one person walks sometimes. I don't know.
I think it'd be worthwhile to do, have a gate temporarily, but change this form of gate that just blocks vehicles but allows pedestrian traffic.
Well,
Say
we have
that
a
one more
motion-
time. I didn't
we have a
quite catch
motion
it.
on the floor and a vote going
Okay,
on.
all right. Well, I'm voting no, just because of how I feel about that, so.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's bring it back to next meeting. Okay?
Okey doke.
There's no decision with three people.
Well, so do we have a vote, though, to put down for Allison? We have a motion and a second, so.
So it failed because we had two yeses and two noes.
So it was 2-2, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think Allison.
Who was the other?
And four has to pass. And
Yep, so, so nothing's going to pass tonight either way, it doesn't look like, so.
So thank you, Director, for the explanation, but I do recommend the mediation, though.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Next is business from the council, and I will start with Councilor Novak this evening.
Oh, you would, bless you. All right, well,
Is that a southern bless you?
Pardon?
Is that a Southern bless
Southern
you?
bless you. That was a Southern bless you. That was a Southern bless you. Yes, indeed it was. You understood me, my friend. Yeah. So, Mr. Pitch was here to speak for himself. I told him that if he couldn't make it, I would make that request for police presence, and I'm so glad to know we're kind of all over it. So good. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention with regard to that housing bill, which, forgive me, there's so many, the one about camping. I'm looking.
3115.
Yeah, that's the one, 3115. I'm looking at information from our LOC, and I was somewhat surprised to learn, and I realize we've already made a decision here, things are already in place, but I wanted you to know, according to the LOC, there are things that cities may potentially do. Cities may create managed camps. Cities may prohibit persons from doing various things. Those are not requirements. That language legally, I believe, is not saying you must, you must, you must. And so I was rather surprised to learn that it's not a case of you must, it is you may. And I think that when you set a place, as we have done, I just know there's absolutely no way to avoid litigation and a mess. You think you're being sued relatively frequently, or I'm really concerned that doing what we've done, putting in place what we've done, you're just opening up a whole universe of opportunity for lawsuits, and they will happen. And there will be all kinds of, I mean, maybe this is some attorney's dream, legal fees and all, but I just would say in advance, watch, because they're knowing a little bit of how some of these things work, it's not going to be pretty, and it will most assuredly take place. And that's why I bring this language to your attention. I don't know if it's too late to make changes or not, but there are sometimes situations where we take action and we live to regret it. Like, I would say, if there was an opportunity to change the legislation that we apparently passed decriminalizing drug use. Boy, would I like to take a giant step back on that one. What I'm trying to say here is I could foresee in the not distant future where we have some regrets about the decision we've made, especially since we didn't have to. We only may have done, if I'm understanding this correctly. Thank you.
So you're right. The city is not required to set those camps up, but if they do not, then the city cannot remove people who camp anywhere on any public property within the city limits. So by having these places designated, then the city can remove people from camping illegally in other public places around the city, such as on the lawn of the courthouse or something like that. If we don't have that, then the state has said if you don't have a place for them to go, then they can camp anywhere they want on public property. Well, and then we could designate time, place, and manner and say, well, you can camp on, and I'll use the court grounds again as an example. You can camp there between the hours of 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., and then we would have the responsibility, or someone would, of removing them each and every morning. Mm-hmm. And so by having designated spots, it makes it easier for mostly law enforcement, but other people to make sure that they're not just camping, people are not just camping anywhere haphazardly around the city. And which can cause problems, because this area has facilities. It'll have trash facilities and restrooms and things that they can use. Whereas if they're camping on the courthouse lawn, they don't have that. So they could go to the bathroom or wherever they want and throw trash down, whatever. This at least is more manageable. And that's the reason the city and a lot of other cities and counties are designating areas. It's not that, it's not that the city just wanted to do that, to take some of their property and do that, but it's a better alternative, we felt, than to let people camp anywhere they want on public property in the city limits. That's why we're doing it. But you're right. I mean, it's probably going to result in lawsuits somewhere, hopefully not here in Albany. I mean, it is, as an attorney, it is some of my dreams, but they're bad dreams because I do envision where people can get sued or the cities can get sued on this. But our hands are kind of tied on it, and we just feel like this is a better option. That's why we did it. So.
Okay. Are you done, Counselor? You got anything else?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Kopsinski.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Newton.
I have two things. First, I wanted to compliment the Albany Parks and Recreation Department. Today, my son and I, we attended the Albany, Fun in the Park event, free snow cones, face painting, lots of bubbles, which my 2-year-old son absolutely enjoyed. It was a wonderful family-friendly event. I'm looking forward to attending more of them this summer. I also read the letter from Mr. Goodrich that he submitted to the council regarding the image, the writing on the sidewalk with the phrase "Be gay, do crime." I just wanted to give a little bit of context to this. So this is a popular slogan within the LGBTQ plus communities, and it's actually gained traction as a symbol of resistance and empowerment. Its origins can be traced back to online communities, social media platforms. It actually, as a meme, became a rallying cry. And actually, for decades in this country, and actually into the present day, being queer is a crime. Just a few years ago, merely existing with queer desire was transgressive enough to land you in jail. In fact, wearing an article of clothing meant for the opposite sex was more than enough to actually get you in jail and likely abused physically or sexually, sometimes by the police. And after decades of respectability politics and apologies, a new generation of people in the queer community have flipped the script. Being gay, at its core, has been involved with doing crimes. It's a sad and crucial part of our history. But this phrase encapsulates the spirit of defiance against societal norms, not like property crimes or crimes against humanity. It really reflects the belief that being true to oneself, even if it means going against established rules or expectations, is a form of rebellion and empowerment. And also this phrase has been adopted in different contexts and also is used to express a range of ideas, including, advocating for LGBTQ plus rights, challenging stereotypes, and highlighting the intersectionality of various social justice movements. It's also been associated with the broader concept of civil disobedience and the idea that marginalized communities must take action to bring about societal change. Overall, Be Gay, Do Crime represents a powerful and catchy slogan, maybe not the absolute best slogan, maybe need a better PR team, that celebrates LGBTQ plus communities and encourages individuals to embrace their true selves while challenging social norms. I want to clearly state, it's not advocating for crime in the sense of, again, crimes against property, crimes against humanity, etc. Lastly, at the end of his letter, Mr. Goodrich had concern of our chief, in his words, defiling and desecrating Albany's city police uniform when she sported a rainbow NAACP sticker, and when she was present at the event, interacting with our community, and as in his words, violation of police code and conduct, a travesty to law enforcement integrity. I want to remind everyone here that the chief and other members of the police were present. They were doing their jobs. It's important for our police to build rapport and trust with marginalized members of our community, especially when you consider the actual origins of Pride, which was a violent police raid at Stonewall Inn in New York City in 1969. That event is widely regarded as a seminal event in the gay rights movement, and I feel it speaks volumes that the Albany Police Department has that rapport and is currently always, they're striving and working towards building and growing trust with every single member of our community from all areas. So, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Smith.
Thank you. I want to go back to the camping issue for a moment. Many people who know my history working here and, working here primarily, I've been involved with displacing homeless camps and finding solutions for the people who were displaced to end up somewhere better. That goes back to 2006 when the City Council ordered the removal of a large homeless camp in Simpson Park. That led to the establishment of, it was the city's first community summit on homelessness here in council chambers in November of 2006. There were 100 people here from all walks of life and all disciplines, and every segment of society was in here putting their heads together to figure out how things could improve. Albany has always been very lucky to have 3 year-round homeless shelters. Most communities don't have that. We're a very small town to have 3 year-round shelters, and they go back, one of them goes back 40 years. So this community has a deep commitment of working with and for the homeless and providing them services. I've always been opposed to camping and to letting people camp. Our code says you can't camp in the parks, you can't camp on public property. I'm good with that. But we now have a state law that that's a result of reacting to a federal court order, a couple of them, telling us that if people are camped on public property and they can't be there, we need to find them a place to camp. And ideally, they would go to the shelters where they can get help and eventually work their way out of the circumstances they're in. Some people will do that. Some people will never do that. But they can't just camp anywhere they want to. So we have to find a place for them. Our response to the ordinance responding to House Bill 3115, I believe, is a very good compromise. We've done a lot of work. Nobody forced us to do this. We're doing this because it's the right thing to do. And we had available property in an unbelievably convenient location, spitting distance between two of our year-round shelters, and not that far from the third, Jackson Street Youth Services. It's going to open this weekend. We will not be able to force people to go there. Those who choose to go there will not be able to stay there forever. But still, it's there. It's an option. It's a way to get them to a safe place. They will be visited by people who provide services several times a week. They will be kept clean. They will be kept sanitized. They will come to the attention of law enforcement when needed. If there are problems there, it's going to be a better solution than hiding under a tree on the Dave Clark path. That made me think of one of Albany's longtime homeless residents. There may be very few people. Former Councilor Kellum is probably one in the room who would remember Marvin Studer. Marvin had a distinguished career at Watchang for many years, and due to a mental crisis and subsequent substance abuse, fell off the ledge with the rest of us in normal life, if you want to call it normal. People with homes and jobs and cars and clean clothes. Marvin went to live on the streets. And Marvin was known, very tall, thin man, raggedy clothes, pushing a shopping cart before it was common, often across all 5 lanes of Pacific Boulevard. And people were used to seeing Marvin all over town, and they would stop and let him cross the street. Everybody in the police department knew him. Everybody tried to help him. Everybody did help him as much as he would allow. But he would never have stayed at our campsite, regardless of what kind of coaching or transportation or other lures we could offer. This campsite is for people other than Marvin who might want to take a chance to improve their lives or let somebody help them improve. And my proposal is to give this place a name in Marvin's memory. I propose that we call it Marvin's Garden. It's nice to have a name for somebody at PD or fire or parks or public works to say, you need to go to Marvin's Garden, rather than calling it the Jackson Street lot. I think it makes it friendlier. I think it makes it more of an established destination, something that has official sanction and authority. And I don't think we're violating any trademark with Parker Brothers. So has an apostrophe in it, and people know how I feel about apostrophes. But I'm just saying, if anybody else thinks this is a good idea, I think we should call that place Marvin's Garden.
I love it. You want to make, do you want to move it?
I'd be honored if someone else would agree with me.
I would love to make a motion that we name the, I guess, I don't know what we call it.
We call it the Jackson Street lot.
The Jackson Street lot, Marvin's Garden.
Is this both lots or just one? The one?
Both of them.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Oh, sorry. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Counselor Novak?
I said aye.
Oh, thank you. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Martin. Is that it?
Yes.
No, thank you. That's, thank you for that. And thank you for the history.
I apologize for making speeches, but sometimes I feel it's necessary. These meetings last a while, a lot of things come up, and if I have any valuable knowledge that I can impart that might help explain then and now, I'm willing to do that.
So for those that are old enough, when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen. So thank you, Counselor Smith. For me, I have a few things to talk about. One, I got a really interesting phone call from a high school friend of mine. She was 2 years behind me in high school, and she's bringing her athletes to the Junior Olympics competition coming up in Eugene, and she couldn't find a place to live. So knowing somebody that deals with this kind of thing, I called Rebecca Bond, and so they've reconnected with her, and she's going to help her find some place for those kids to practice and to stay while the Olympics going on. So thank you, Director. House Bill 3115, I totally appreciate your history. I appreciate your motion, your proposal. I think it's perfect. And we got commissioned some school kids to do a sign. So that'd be really cool. So thank you for that. The Pride event, I attended the Pride event this weekend. I cannot tell you how many people from Portland, Eugene, from Bend, from Newport, Astoria, people came from all over to this event. And it was a sight. 70 vendors. And I personally went from table to table and thanked each one of them for coming out for our Pride event. It was watching people laugh and hug, and the governor's speech, Lisa Avery's speech, Jason Dorset's speech. There were so many wonderful speeches that it was just a very joyous event. So I appreciate that. And having gay family members growing up, they wouldn't believe what happened last weekend. I did actually have to make a few stops. There was a softball tournament in town, USA Softball 10-12, 12-14, 16s. State championship, C-level. But I got a complaint from the UIC, which is umpire in charge, that out at Timberland, there's a concrete slab for ADA parking, but at Bryant Park, there's not. And there was this older gentleman in a wheelchair to go see his great-granddaughter play her first softball tournament.
he couldn't get there, and somebody out there stopped him from coming inside the gate to drop him off. So he had to go across this gravel parking lot in a wheelchair. So I've asked Peter to look into that for me, for us, to make sure that place is safe for people in wheelchairs, mobility devices. Lynn County Fair had some interesting things going on. I went out there. It was a black sheep event, and the sheep were actually all black and long hair and different sizes. So it was really cool getting out there with them. And I finished my 58th lap around the sun, June 22nd. So thank you all for your birthday wishes. It wasn't as great as what Mr. Kellum did for me last year, but it was, the people reaching out was fantastic. I was in Applebee's, I was at Sears, Home Depot, people saying happy birthday. Social media is wonderful sometimes. But thank you all, and I will turn it over to our city manager for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't have much other than to remind you that when you adjourn, we'll have to reconvene under Chair Newton for the ARA for a short meeting. And I don't, it'll be a short meeting. So I know that there's a tendency to think about a break, but that meeting will be short. So
I need a break. I really need a break this time. I've been up since 4:30 this morning. So next meeting dates are Monday, July 10th, 2023 at 4 p.m. for a work session. Oh, I forgot to mention this. We had a great meeting with the Benton County Commissioners this week, so I really like the process. Wednesday, July 12th, 2023 at 6 p.m. for a standard or regular council meeting. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting and be back here in 10 minutes at 7:42 p.m. Thank you. We're going to switch up.